Hi, I'm Nikki Jovicic from LookUpStrata, and for today's webinar session, I'm joined by Rod Smith from the Strata Collective. Rod is joining us today to discuss interpreting your strata plan. We know you have lots of questions about interpreting common property and how to read your strata plan, and we know this because we've received hundreds of questions from our New South Wales readers about common property over the last few months. The correct interpretation of the strata plan is a crucial aspect of the management of any strata scheme. During Rod's presentation, he'll be stepping us through the basics of reading a strata plan. We'll cover some of the common terms and references used on strata plans, plus take a look at a few interesting case studies that might be applicable to your particular strata scheme. We welcome Rod and thanks for joining us today. And Rod's career commenced in corporate finance and taxation, working with prestigious firms such as PwC before moving into the property industry. Specialising in the management of prestigious and complex strata schemes, community associations and building management committees, Rod brings a high level of technical experience to the team. Rod holds an accounting finance degree from University of New South Wales and is a level 3 accredited strata manager in New South Wales. He's participated on both the SCA Strata Managers Subcommittee and the Urban Development Industry of Australia's Strata Subcommittee. This is Rod's third webinar with LookUpStrata. Rod was one of our very first webinar guests where he participated in one of our New South Wales Ask Us Anything sessions. And then this was followed by an excellent webinar titled High Performing Strata Committees. And if you haven't seen the webinar on strata committees yet, I really recommend that you watch it, and we'll place a link to that session in the email that we send out later today. Rod's been a long-time supporter of LookUpStrata and regular contributor responding to readers' questions. So we welcome Rod. Thanks so much for joining us today for this session. And I'm sure this session will become an important reference tool for New South Wales lot owners. Thanks, Rod.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nikki. Welcome, everyone. 100 questions on common property since the beginning of the year. So I hope everyone's brought their breakfast, lunch and dinner. So we've finished at about midnight tonight by the sounds of things. But no, in all seriousness, I'm really excited about this because I've got some really fascinating things to share. I am not a surveyor, so my experience in this is purely practical, which I'm hopeful that is what everyone on this webinar is interested in, and yeah, we'll get something from it. Great to see people from Nowra, WA. I'm not sure what time it's in WA, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 a.m. or something like that. So enjoy your breakfast, and yeah, I'm going to launch straight into it. Hopefully we'll have a chance to answer some questions, but some of them that have come through I need to think about and look up the legislation a bit more, but I do hope to come back to everyone in the fullness of time. So bear with me and Nikki, and we'll get straight in. So let me just get my share screen going. There we go. This one looks like the right one. Let me just bring it up now.
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, it's up. Okay, I'm on page 20 by the looks of things. Is that correct?
It is. It looks like it, but that's fine.
We'll get to that eventually. Let me just go back to slide 1. Excellent. So overview, key legislation involving strata schemes, lot versus common property. So I'm going to do a bit of a walkthrough on that. Understanding key terms on the strata plan, a few case studies from our business, some really interesting things that I've seen and experienced, and some questions if we've got time. So let's get on with it. So the key legislations for strata, around strata and strata plans. The first one is, of course, a strata scheme. So strata schemes are constituted under the Strata Schemes Development Act 2015. So most of the strata managers on the call will be familiar with the Strata Schemes Management Act 2015. But when it comes to drafting and registering strata plans, as well as a lot of the developer activities, that is actually the Development Act 2015. So that's the key thing. The name of the entity is the owner's strata plan number, blah, 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 up to 103,300. I think we've got a first AGM for 103,331, which is in a few weeks' time. So the key management document is the bylaws. So moving along, a stage strata scheme. If you've been part of a stage strata scheme, you'll know that the strata development contract contains all the sex, drugs, and violence in terms of how that's to roll out. And that's actually a registered document. So Strata, under the Strata Schemes Development Act 2015, name of the owner, Strata Plan, whatever it is, and then the Strata Development Contract is the key document there. BMCs, so also constituted under the Strata Schemes Development Act 2015. You don't have owners, you've got members. So the members are subdivided by a strata plan, a subdivision. So if there's a strata scheme within there, it actually is a strata scheme in its own right, and it's a strata plan of subdivision. And the key document is the strata management statement, or if there isn't a strata scheme within the building management committee, there is a building management statement. So moving along. Section 4.1 of the Development Act advises common property in relation to a strata scheme or a proposed strata scheme means any part of a parcel that is not comprised in a lot, including any common infrastructure that is not part of the lot. So often when the legislation defines things, it will say what it isn't. So then you have to go what it isn't to work out what it is. So common property is normally formed by the upper surface of the floor. The upper surface of the floor excluding carpet. So if there's tiles or parquetry flooring, that's often considered common property. The undersurface of the ceiling excluding paint, and all external or boundary walls, including windows and doors. A really fun thing that someone once said to me relation to lot property and common property is often you can work out what is lot versus common property, and an easy way to explain it to owners is if you were to pick up the apartment, shake it upside down, it's whatever drops to the ground. So anything that's structural around the box itself is indeed common property in most cases. The lot in relation to a strata schemes means one or more cubic spaces shown as a lot on a floor plan relating to the scheme, but does not include any common infrastructure unless the common infrastructure is described on the plan in a way prescribed by the regulation as part of the lot. So when someone buys an apartment, they are buying the cubic airspace within it. So breathe it in, ladies and gentlemen that own strata apartments, that's all yours. All the walls are mine, or stratas, I should say. And as a result, anything within the boundaries is considered lot property. So that's normally things such as dishwashers, the kitchen benches, etc. So I've got an awesome diagram that I didn't prepare. The good people at Bannerman's Lawyers prepared, which I've borrowed and acknowledged for the purpose of this webinar, which I just want to show you. It's really, really super helpful. And I also want to show people the common property memorandum, because that is also super helpful in terms of understanding what's a strata scheme and what's not. On our website, we've got a video, What is Strata, which is a YouTube in our education, and it's a walk through an apartment. It's super helpful for people that want to see an apartment, get a bit of an understanding on the basics of strata. It's a bit of a crash course. It's only 10 minutes, so you can have a look at that as well. So let me just have a look. Admin sheet. So this is the strata plan itself. So many of our strata managers and people on strata committees will have looked at something that looks very similar to this. So I'm just going to get myself organized. So this is the front page, page 1. Most strata plans will look quite similar to this. And I'm just going to walk through the relevant sections. Could you see my mouse or not?
No, I don't think we can, Rod, unfortunately.
No props. So the top left-hand corner is a section called Strata Certificate. So it specifies the council or private certifiers approving details. So it and how the strata plan actually came about. So that's the top left. Then to the right of that, you'll see a heading called the surveyor's certificate. So that's name and details of the surveyor that drew the strata plan, and also acknowledgement that they're registered surveyors under the Surveyors Act 1929. Further down from there is the bylaws. So it's sort of the middle left. The strata plan actually will tell you on page 1 what bylaws are applicable to your strata scheme. This beautiful building, Barrington, one of the jewels of Newington in New South Wales, for those of you who are familiar with Newington, it's actually one of the nicest, well-maintained stratas in Newington. So 22 years old, still looks brand new. Oh, it's not 22 years old, it's 20 years old, still looks brand new, which is a beautiful thing. And yep, they've got an awesome committee there that work hard. Right below that is the schedule of units of entitlement. As the people on this call possibly or probably know, the units of entitlement are the entitlements for each lot, which is what the levies are determined off. So the aggregate in this instance is 1,000 lots, and I can see lot 1 owes 26 or 1,000 units of entitlement. So depending on the size, it's actually determined rather on the market value at the time of registration in terms of from a sales price, will determine what units of entitlement per apartment. Going up to the plan at top middle right, plan of subdivision of lot 220 in DP 270188. So what this will tell people that are switched on, DP 270188 is a reference to a community association. So that will tell me just by looking at this strata plan, page 1, oh, that's interesting. This is part of a community association and is part of P3 Newington. So we are a lot in that strata scheme, much in that community scheme, I should say, much the same as an owner is a lot owner in a strata scheme. Over to the right, it tells you the strata plan number, the title system, the purpose, the reference, and the last plan, which is the DP. Below that is the details of the owner's corporation, their address, and below that is the location plan / easement box. So you'll usually see easements that are attached to the strata's plan in that location box. So this is the first plan, the first page of a strata plan. It's the administrative information sheet 1, and it's very interesting because it contains a lot of meaningful information for you on your strata's plan. Does that all make sense?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Rod. That looks fantastic.
Oh, location plan. So I'm going to move along to the location plan. So this tells us where the strata scheme is located in reference to the rest of the world. So we can see that there's a north indicator, which is Holker Street is northeast for all the geography lovers out there. And I can see that by the arrow that is at the top left-hand corner. And at the bottom is Blaxland Avenue, which is the southeast side. I think that's right, isn't it? The southish side of the strata plan, so which is actually their street address. So it tells us that it's a 3-story brick residential building, and it's called Barrington. And it will also goes down below the section that says Blaxland Avenue. All of the easements, so some of the easements. So we've got an easement for support. We've got a right of access because the nice neighbours in lot 203 in DP 270188. Which I can't remember the name or number of their strata scheme because I don't manage it and we don't talk to them at all, really, which is fine. Not weird. But they're allowed to use our driveway because we've got a common driveway. So it's essentially half and half, which is an interesting thing. So they're the right of access, the variable land, easement for services, denotes balcony, denotes terrace. So it gives us a bit more information about the strata scheme. moving along, the floor plan. So this is where things start to get interesting. This will give us the floor by floor plan for each level within the strata scheme. So I've just picked level 1 here as an example, but there's a basement 1, ground floor 2, 3, level 3 as well. So it actually tells us quite a lot about the strata scheme there. So this is usually where I look at for decisions and information about particular lots within the strata scheme. So that's the strata plan. So I'm going back into lot versus common property. So the common property memorandum is a very, very interesting, useful guide for strata schemes. It's actually a tool that we in our office use quite a bit to explain to owners why something is common property and why something is lot owners property, because it is it's a fair trading document. It is not a perfect document. It is a general document, but it is an excellent document that really clearly spells out what is common property. So this is just the snapshot of page 1, but all you need to do is simply Google common property memorandum in your web browser, and you can bring up the common property memorandum, and it'll give you a pretty good guide on what is common property versus what is lot owners property. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So have a look at that. If you're ever not sure and you want to test yourself, you're probably going to get the right answer looking at that. A lot of our strata schemes, or great proportion of our strata schemes, have registered this part of their bylaws, so they have it incorporated, which a lot of strata schemes have done as well. I'm going to stop for air because I speak too quickly. Here we go. The Bannerman's map that I was telling you about, which is really, really super helpful in outlining in an apartment what is lot property and what is common property. So I'm going to skip through a few. Solar panels are rare. Internal walls, so they're not shown on the strata plan. So if I go back to this page, oops, I've gone too far. If I look at the left-hand column, part 3, it just looks like a big open apartment, but the reality is there's bathroom, kitchen, bedrooms, lounge room, all the normal things that you see in a strata scheme within there. So going back to my pretty diagram, split system air conditioning. Now I'm going to speak on that in a moment. Carpet, as I mentioned before, carpet is not common property. Carpet is something that owners will need to insure under their contents insurance, because strata insurance does not in most instances cover carpet. So that's something that all owners on this call should take away, because it's very common for water leaks to damage people's carpets. The hand goes up, can strata pay for my carpet? Often it's not covered by insurance, so definitely check that out. Kitchen cupboards and appliances, curtains and blinds, tiles and waterproof membranes on internal walls, not shown on the strata plan. So that's really interesting. So this will make sense in a moment, but internal wall tiles is not covered by strata. Often there is a split with bathroom waterproofing works between owner's responsibility and strata responsibility. And often we need to form an agreement with the owner, because the one contractor will do both jobs. Bath, basin, toilet, plumbing above the surface of the floor, light fitting, light switches, power points, internal doors, car parking spaces above the surface. So they're lot property. So that's an interesting thing. So the actual car space belongs to your lot. So again, that idea of breathe in the air, you own it, it's yours. The cubic air space within the car space is yours. So moving down to common property, common property solar panels, and we've got a question that on that I'll probably have to take online because it's a very offline because it's an interesting question. Roof tiling is common property. The voids enclosing shared pipes and wires, so often in buildings, and I'll show you some examples of those in a moment. Are common property. Ceilings, external doors, balcony doors, upper and lower boundaries on balconies, external windows, external balustrades, the slab, wiring outside premises or shared wiring between other lots. So common wiring, common pipes that go through common property, visitor car spaces, original common storage cages, waterproofing tiles, fire alarms. That's an interesting one, that common property fire alarms, plumbing outside premises or shared plumbing with other lots, penetrations, and the original floor tiles. So this is a really good diagram. I just wanted to share with the webinar viewers that it exists. It's really helpful. So between the common property memorandum, the strata plan, this diagram, you're probably going to be able to cover off most day-to-day scenarios to assist you with working out what to do. However, of course, Nikki, it wouldn't be a webinar without some crazy examples. So I'll show you some awesome crazy examples just in a moment. Okay, terminology. Let's get so this session is a vegetables session rather than a chocolate and KFC session, as in we're going through getting some building blocks on strata that are really important. It's not the fun, sexy stuff like we did last time about high-performing strata committees. So I'm just going to walk through some terminology quickly. So thick line, structural boundaries. So normally a thick line on a strata plan is a physical boundary that also is the boundary of the lot properties. So what some typical examples are: a wall, a balustrade, a window, or a door. So they're normally what would be thick lines within a strata plan, as in structural boundaries. So I'm looking at lot 110 of strata plan 89643, which is a 8-story apartment complex in Ryde that we manage. It looks like it's a total lot area for lot 10 is 79 square meters. This area here is that I'm within the apartment is 63 square meters. So so to me, it looks like it's probably a medium-sized 1-bedroom apartment. So that tells me a bit of information about the property as well. A vernaculum. So say that 5 times out loud and then 5 times backwards if you can. I probably can't because I've been jumbling my words for the last half hour. A vernaculum is a symbol that looks like a reversed S. What it's used for is to join 2 parcels of land as part of the one lot. So in this instance, I'm looking at lot 50, which is the lot property and the balcony. So the vernaculum is joining the balcony to the lot. So it's saying that balcony is part of lot 50. So if I go back to my last slide, you can see the vernaculum used to join the balcony for lot 110. There's one in for lot 109 that we can see hiding down to the bottom of that slide as well. So a vernaculum is the backwards S which joins 2 parcels of land. So that's a really important thing to understand. So we've got thick lines, we've got vernaculums. We've now got thin lines, line boundaries. So it's not usually defined by a permanent structure. It's normally for fences and mesh garages. So it's still the boundary of common property. So I'm looking at lot 9 here for strata plan 18217, which is one of our strata schemes, a block of 10 on the North Shore. And this is a courtyard apartment, as you can see. And at the top of that section, you can see the vernaculum joining the thick lines around part 9. And then you can also see a thick line going up to the top of the word courtyard. So that would be most likely a wall, and also down the bottom, another thick line, which would also be a wall. And then at the top of the courtyard and down the side, you can see the angled lines, they would be paling fences. So it's thin lines are often used for fences, mesh garages. So you've got thick lines, vernaculars, thin lines. And interesting, as I was preparing for today's webinar, the LRS, which is the old Department of Lands, now called the LRS New South Wales, they actually have millimeter requirements for thick and thin lines. So it's very technical. There's a bit to it. You can't just, Nikki and I can't just get out our crayons and lob in a strata plan. It's going to be rejected. So there's actually a level of science and precision around this, which of course is a good thing to avoid any ambiguity. So dashed line.
Sorry, Rod, do you mind if I just jump in? We've just been asked whether all of this is relative to schemes that are registered after 1974, or is it also prior?
1974. I should have said that. 1 July 1974 is what I'm basing this. There is specific requirements for strata schemes pre-1 July 1974. The strata plan numbers around 8,200 or 8,500. So if your strata plan number 1 to 8,500, you have some different requirements on that, and you can find the details on that. For instance, the balcony door is not considered common property, and for strata schemes pre-1 July 1974. So this is for post-1 July 1974 strata schemes.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for that.
And there's a truckload of stuff on the website. If the good webinar participant doesn't have any stuff, or they can't find something helpful, please email me and I'll put something together that's helpful on our website and let them know.
Excellent, thanks, Rod. And I think we have an article that we published from Bannerman's. It was a while ago, but it would still obviously would be applicable. So we can point them to that as well. I might pop that in there. Another link to go out in the email that's being sent out later today.
That's great, Nikki. I knew you would have something wonderful. So well done. So the dashed lines showing a dimension of common property. So this is Strata Plan 80611 at Carlingford, and I'll be talking about them in a moment. A really interesting case study. Visitor parking, you can see that there's outlines of all the spaces. I mentioned before structural members and voids. If you can see the chunky rectangles that are upward pointing rectangles between a bunch of those visitor pass spaces, it's actually structural members that are holding up the car park from the apartments. So they're shown in the strata plan as well. So this is a really straightforward but helpful use of dashed lines. Fences. So strata schemes, Common Property, Lot Property, Dividing Fences Act. Now, the Dividing Fences Act is a very peculiar and interesting part of strata law. I don't have enough time to cover it off. It's probably a really interesting topic for another day. I'm sure Nikki's got stuff on her website about it. But fences shown with thick line common property, fences between lots shown by a thin line, a lot property, joint liability of the respective lot owners. For example, the dividing fence between, say, lot 110 and 111 in a townhouse development, the Dividing Fences Act would come into play. Fences between a lot and common property shown with a thin line, owner and the owner's corporation jointly liable for repairs. And fences on the boundary of a scheme, either thick or thin line, owner's corporation and adjoining owner liable for repair. So again, that Dividing Fences Act comes into play. There's some interesting things in Dividing Fences Act around when you're boundary with RTA or council land. So you need to keep that in mind as well. So I'm going to dive in. I'm running right on time, so I'm not running over as I usually do, which is a beautiful thing. So case studies. So I've got some really cool case studies that I wanted to show you. So this is Strata Plan 81799. And if you look at the top right-hand corner, you'll see part 8, which of course, as we now know, is lot 8 in that strata scheme. I'm going to go between this slide 22 and slide 23. So if you look at lot 8, you will see at the top middle, there is a dotted line that goes around which goes through the courtyard, and that is a fence, and it is 0.1 meters from the boundary of the lot. So it's really interesting. They've installed a fence on the boundary, like inside the boundary of the lot, and they've made it abundantly clear that that is not common property. Then just below the word yard and above the word CS, there's a dotted line. Under that dotted line in real life, in RL, as my kids would say, that is actually a concrete slab. So what they've tried to do in the strata plan, successfully done, is said, all right, lot 8, you own the concrete slab and you own that fence. So if I go back to slide 22, and let me just get my my hard copy so I can read it, and it'll make more sense when you see the slide notes. It is specific that the fence in the strata scheme is owned by the lot owner. So note 6 says all fences on lot boundaries are common property. All other internal fences form part of the strata lot. So what they've done is they've said, all right, we're going to whack a fence here, but it has to be lot owners, lot 8's responsibility. And you can see there's similar things throughout lot 7, lot 6, lot 4. There's a bunch of fences, and they all have these concrete slabs just outside the rear door, which are joined with a vernacular. But because it's a dotted line, it's not just for that concrete slab, it's for the whole courtyard section. So really interesting how the surveyor has allocated ownership in this strata scheme. And yeah, I love this one. So really cool.
I think that's great, Rod. I think it really highlights the fact, because we have so many questions that come in about common property, and usually a lot of the responses are you have to revert back to the strata plan, because if somebody wrote into us and said, is my fence common property, how would you know unless you'd actually seen that strata plan?
You're 100% right. And that's why I've tried to put together some of the building blocks that I've used to work out whose responsibility is, you know, this fence, this wall, etc.
Excellent, thank you.
I'll give you another fences example. Beautiful strata plan of 3 that we manage, 66715. Our neighbor wrote to us and said, hey guys, your retaining wall is cracking on your side, and here's an engineer's report. You might want to have a look at it. So of course, what do? We thought, oh, that's interesting. We actually spoke to a lawyer, and they said, what's on the other side of the retaining wall? And we said, oh, it's their pool. And they said, oh, because it's a pool on the other side, that's actually their responsibility to fix. So there's a whole bunch of nuances under the Dividing Fences Act that impact this. So that's another important building block that we should look at, which I don't have time to do, but I'm sure you've got articles on your website. So have a look at that as well whenever you're dealing with fences. Now, here's an awesome strata plan. I love this one. Strata plan 69697. It's 8 townhouses right smack bang in the middle of Paddington. It's a strata scheme we manage, and it's a really interesting one. If I look at the location plan, you'll see from the location plan, you'll see at the right hand side there's a crossed out part 2, 1049.073, and that's a massive section of common property. So right in the middle of Paddington, worth a fortune, of course. Smack bang, probably about where the word common property is a gigantic London plane tree, I should say, which is actually protected, has council restrictions around, and there's a whole bunch of covenants around that tree. So that's common property, and it's protected. So you've got this strata scheme, 3-story terraces over basement garages with metal roof. So that's the location plan. If I move along to the strata plan, you can see that the basement is common property. But in terms of the only lot property within this strata scheme, it's 1 square meter for each of these lots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 square meter of common property in the basement. So the actual townhouses above are owned by the owners and are not part of their lot. They don't form part of this strata scheme. So they have to arrange their own repairs and maintenance. They have to arrange their own insurance. The only thing strata covers is the common property on the strata scheme. So it's quite a fascinating situation. I imagine when the time comes for them to paint, what they'd have to do is have like one contract, and they would all need to be signatories to that contract. Lot 8 is owned by an extremely difficult barrister, of course, who is in continual dispute with the rest of the owners corporation. And so likely that Lot 8 would have their own thing, which of course they're entitled to do. So they would probably have to all sign off, maybe have a deed behind it or some sort of agreement behind it where they're all commit, but would have nothing to do with strata. Why? Because it's not common property. So really interesting, really fascinating strata plan. Again, it pays to look at what you own and look at the strata scheme. Another case study, 84686. It's a triplex strata scheme. I'm going to be going before and after 29 to 28. So if you look at lot 2, there is a dotted line, which unless you can't work it out, and I'll tell you right now, it's actually the house. So the house is actually lot property rather than common property. And I'll get back to the strata plan on that, but which talks about this. So it's really interesting to see that the houses are lot property, not common property. So the only common property is on lot 3, and the garages, and the garages, let me just go back. Oh yeah, and the garages, which are for each of the 3 lots. So you can see 3 garages down the bottom, and then you can see lot 3, which has thick lines, which are common property. So the house itself are lot property 1 and 2. If you look at note D, if you got your magnifying glasses out, it says the building situated wholly within lots 1 and 2 form part of those lots and are not common property. So if your window gets broken, off you go. You have to fix it like with any other lot property maintenance item rather than contacting Strata for attention. So really interesting, fascinating to see how the surveyors dealt with the houses being owned by the individuals rather than Strata. So, yep. Strata Plan 67607, one of our Strata schemes at Petersham. We recently did the Capital Works Fund plan, and it came back with all the air conditioning being on the Capital Works Fund. I thought, that's weird. Why on earth have they put $15,000 a year for the next 10 years? And the gentleman said, because all the air conditioners are 20 years old and they're going to require replacements. So as a strata manager, what do you do? So the obvious thing, of course, to do is look at the strata plan. And if you look at the bottom right of the floor plan and this is just the second form, it says air conditioning units and associated ducts, cables, and plants which service individual lots form part of the lot, are part of and are to be maintained by each respective lot. So I sent a polite email and said, oh, you might want to have another look at sheet 7 of the strata plan, and which says that the air conditioners are lot owner property, which he said, oh, oops, updated his plan, and then the levies looked a lot more sensible, so without the air conditioners included. So happy days. So this is a very, very common thing you see in strata plans where the air conditioners that service one lot. Split systems are specifically excluded. There's also another note that I wanted to show you. Balconies on the left. Balconies, planter boxes, and terraces are limited in height to 2.5 above the upper surface of the respective concrete floor, except where covered. So this is a very common notation. So what that means in English is from above the surface to 2.5 meters is lot property. From 2.5 meters into space is strata property. And you see similar notations for courtyards. You'll see limited in depth of 1 meter below and 2.5 meters above, or 3 or 2 meters. So outline what is lot property, but anything outside of that is common property. So what do you do if there's, say, a massive tree in a courtyard? Normally it's forming an agreement with the owner. So it's not all strata, not all owners. Most in our experience have had a had an informal, but yet in writing agreement with the lot owner saying, strata, we think it's 3/4 ours, 1/4 yours. We will pay in 3/4, you pay 1/4. Is that okay? And in most cases, the answer is yes, and then off we go. So it's a matter of working out whose tree it is, the responsibility, and then dealing with it in an appropriate way. So that's just something that is really important that you might want to keep your eye on. So things like in courtyards, we often see, bamboo, plants going bananas, all that sort of thing. They get planted as a seedling, and it's next thing you know, it's the great London plane tree that's going to take over the world. You just need to keep in mind that only a portion of it is lot owner's responsibility. So from a governance perspective, it's really important that these are some of the things that you think through and have a fair yet lawful way of dealing with that. Going to keep going ahead. Here's a really interesting one. This is a new one. If anyone has any great ideas, love to hear this. So if I look at Strata Plan 89643 and I look at the bottom note, tiling within the units and balconies is not common property and forms part of the respective lot. Now, we've got a recent issue that's been reported where the balcony, which is the outlet drain, the concrete on the lip before the balcony at the edge of the balcony is actually starting to crumble in some situations. So my question is that common property, yes or no? And my initial thoughts are, well, if it says specifically tiling, so if the tiling is required to be impacted, probably the lot owners would need to come to some sort of arrangement with that. But the concrete is potentially not a lot owners' problem. It's potentially common property, but the reality is this issue needs to be dealt with. My recommendation to the Owners Corp would be to get a quick legal advice on how we're wanting to do it, whether or not it's common property or lot owner's property. So that way, when we speak to the owners about the situation, we've got the full facts and we can speak with some level of confidence and authority rather than guessing. So really fascinating situation. I understand why the surveyor probably put tiles, because tiles are expensive. But you've hit the fast forward button and now we've got this problem that's kind of relating to tiling, but not really. I guess it's more related to balconies. What on earth do you do? You just need to think through the issues about how you can get a fair outcome for the owners whilst meeting your legal obligations. So yeah, really fascinating one, this one. Haven't yet dealt with it. We're still getting quotes on how to fix the thing, but that'll form part of the conversation. So I'm at probably chapter 2 and we'll probably get to chapter 8. So watch this space, still working on it. Final study is Strata Plan 80611. This is the penthouse in that strata scheme. The spa bath and associated equipment and pergola within the terrace of lot 16 of that are not a part of that lot are not and is not considered common property. So spa and pergola are not common property. Wouldn't it be nice to have a spa in your apartment? I don't have a spa. I'm just going to have a shower every day, I guess. But yeah. So we had an issue where this pergola was terribly damaged during recent heavy weather events in Sydney, and the owner contacted us and said, "Oh, can you fix our pergola?" And interestingly, because it's not common property, we immediately said, "Sorry, mate, you're going to have to sort it out as lot property." However, the pergola is actually covered by insurance, so insurance were kind enough to lodge and pay for a claim to have this repaired. So often, even though something isn't specifically common property, it may still be covered under insurance. So it depends if it's maintenance or an insurable event, and you can deal with that on a case-by-case basis. But the first thing to do, of course, would be for an insurable event, reach out to insurance and to see if it's covered under their policy wording. So there we go. That's what I've got right on time. So I'm feeling good about things. Can I unshare my screen or?
You should be able to just on that same button down the bottom, Rod.
Let me just get myself organized.
Yeah, you're right. That's fine. That was fantastic. I know we're a little bit longer in presentation time than we usually are, but I think it was well worth it because the detail that you put into the slides and the explanation was fantastic. So thank you so much for that. Now we did have questions that were submitted, but we might just park those and get back to them at a later date because we don't have a whole lot of time to go into any detail. But we did have a few questions that came up during the session that were more around clarification of what you spoke about. So if it's okay with you, Rod, we might just cover those quickly.
Sure.
Okay.
Am I still sharing?
Yeah, I'll see.
Let me just try and close out. I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm trying to get
I wonder if I can go. There you go. That's fine. I think I blocked you, so we're back.
Fantastic.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry about that. My
That's
Zoom had gremlins.
That's fine. Okay, so we had a quick question from Richard. I think this is a great question for everyone. Where can I get a copy of my Strata Plan?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So the first thing to do would be to speak to your Strata manager. They'll be able to email you one straight away. There are certain facilities out there that you can download them. We use an agency to download them, but I'm sure some of the large companies have direct logins, but speak to your Strata manager, you should be able to get a copy. They're very inexpensive to download. They're usually $15 to $30 to download. So yeah, I won't send you a break, but probably speak to your Strata manager if you've got one.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you. And then another one, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion when you were talking about tiles and waterproofing. So
Yeah.
there's just been sort of a few people had asked for some
Yeah.
clarification around that. Right,
Yep.
if that's okay.
100%. So the issue is, and I'm sorry, I did skim over that because I was mindful of time, but thank you for asking. So with a waterproofing system on a balcony, you have a number of elements. So you've got a hob, which is like a concrete member, which sits above the tiles and usually has a drain and a full. So the tiles and the balcony has what they call a full, so that the angle on the balcony runs towards a drain and then out. So the concrete hob will have a hole or a drain in it, so that water escapes the balcony and doesn't sit there. So the issue with this apartment, there's about a number of apartments, is that the concrete where the drainage outlet is, there's not a drain there, it just sort of runs off. The concrete's starting to get cracked and fail. So the way that the engineer has specified to repair is to take up the tiles, take up the waterproofing, relay the waterproofing, relay the tiles, redo the hob as one job. Now, that's obviously going to be expensive. So on the strata plan, it said that tiles are lot owner's responsibility. So my question for the lawyer would be, if we just do the hob, does that count as tiles because it is part of the same waterproofing system? And is that owner's corporation responsibility if we just do the whole? Now, my initial thoughts are yes. But if we do the whole specified work by the engineer, which is the waterproofing, the tiling, and the hob, what is ours and what is the owner's? So I just think when you're invoicing or you're suggesting to owners, hey, John, we need you to pay $7,000 because we said so, and the work needs to be done. Have a nice life. I think that you want to have the facts correct, of course, because it's actually about working with the owners to fix this problem that isn't going away. So that is why I would probably get a legal opinion just for the owners corporation as a committee, as well as the owners' peace of mind to say, actually, we've thought about this issue and this is why you will be liable for some of the costs if we do it. Now, if it's lot owner's responsibility, it is and it's something that needs to be repaired or maintained, and they refuse to, that's a whole different conversation rather than how do we ensure fairness, assuming that the owner is happy to proceed.
And we've just had a couple of comments come in to say, is that also the same for a waterproofing of a shower and if the tiles are in the bathroom? Does that still relate back to that as well?
But for that strata plan, yes, it says tiling internal, but that's rare. That's the first. So probably I should make a clear comment. Normally the floor tiles in the bathroom are common property. This is a specific example at a specific strata scheme that I wanted to show to illustrate that each strata plan is different. You need to look at the plan. So getting back to tiles in a bathroom, in almost all the other cases in our business, the common property memorandum, the Bannerman's article, all would suggest, and correctly so, that shower tiles for the floor are common property.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. Oh, that's great. Okay, well, I think now we've got just a few minutes to go, so I think that probably is time to sort of stop the question. We've got a couple of things to cover just in the last few minutes. So if you did submit a question during chat or previous to the webinar, and we didn't get to it. We're really sorry, but I think it was worthwhile going through all of the slides and discussing all of those different case studies, which I think are fascinating. So please just jump onto the LookUpStrata site, resubmit your question if we haven't had time to go over it, and we'll certainly, Rod can have a look at it, or if it's something that's better off sent to somebody else, we'll get somebody to deal with it and get back to you with a response. So yeah, we just thank you, Rod, for this session again today. It's been another fantastic session. But you did mention that you did that walkthrough of all of the common property. That's fantastic. We've got it up on our What is Strata page, and I just had a quick look. It's had over 1,000 views, so everyone's obviously finding it really helpful.
Going to become a YouTube sensation, Nikki.
I think so. I think you're a star. So we'll send the link to that out, and I think everyone will find that really helpful because it's so practical. You're actually walking through a unit and saying this is common property, this is not common property, and yeah, I love it. I think it's fantastic. So we'll get that out to everybody. But we just also wanted to ask at the end of the sessions, I always ask presenters if they've got something they'd like to share with us or some final word that they'd like to let us know about.
Me? Oh,
yeah,
yes. Sorry, I was thinking about my own thing. Look, it's an honor to be part of this. In terms of our business, we really value educating our owners as much as we possibly can. We're in the process of doing more videos for our website, but that What is Strata resource is an excellent resource. Got a bunch of available to the public. Education articles which hopefully will be helpful on some of the questions that you have, yeah, just thank you, Nikki, for the awesome content that you always continue to deliver. I'm really grateful for the good work that you do in the strata industry, and I just wanted to acknowledge that on this webinar as well.
Oh, thanks, Rod. That's lovely. And we, of course, we couldn't do any of this without the presenters that come in and give their time to us. So, yeah, we really thank you for all you've done. You've always been a great supporter since way back in the very beginning, and we really appreciate that. So it's great to have these relationships and to be able to bounce off each other and get this really great content out to everyone. So thanks again to everyone who supports us and joins these sessions. It's a pleasure to bring this information through to you, and yeah, we'll see you at the next one, Rod, definitely.
For sure. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks so much. Bye. Have a great day. Bye. Thanks for joining us for this educational session. If you gained value from the information, please like this video. You can also engage further with LookUpStrata by subscribing to our YouTube channel or by being kept informed about Strata news via our regular newsletters. Our subscribe link is listed in the description box below.